Boom, we are live. Rickard Vikström, CCO of Internet Vikings. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I can't complain at all. Just like we spoke about here before, it's a beautiful day here in Malta. It's November, but it feels like it's almost spring in there almost, so I can't complain at all. How is everything over in Stockholm?
It's good to be in November. It's like 12 degrees today, so I was out for around lunch, and that was nice.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, we are a little bit in sync today. I'm happy to hear that. Rickard, your resume is pretty much longer than what my whole arm is. And you've been involved in so many different companies and organizations. When I research you a little bit more, I mean, we've known each other for a long time, but I haven't actually looked into your history, especially outside of the gaming industry. So I was curious to see actually the amount of organizations and startups and boards that you've been involved in. So I'd like to start by asking you today, what is the best and the worst business idea that you have ever had?
Okay, let me start with the worst one. That was probably me and some friends from college had 15 years ago an idea that we're gonna you could send your teddy bear to Stockholm as for a trip, that we took that teddy bear out for sightseeing and like 2-day trip, and then you could we would send, like, we would do like a book about it, like a photo book, and yes, a diary, what have happened and what we did, and just send it back to the person. It was called Teddy in Stockholm, or STHLM.
Yeah.
It didn't fly. I think we got one customer, and we shut it down after like 6 months or something, or a year.
How did you even come up with an idea like that?
I don't remember. I have no idea how we came up with it. We were like, I don't know, 18, 19 at the time.
Yeah, exactly. A night out, and then like, I have a great idea, guys.
I don't even think it was a night out. It was just brainstorming of a business idea.
Yeah.
And then be like, okay, how can we do a franchise of this and scale it worldwide?
Yeah, cool. What about the best idea that you've ever had?
The best idea, I would say, it's probably do what you like. And as I've been like working with computers or doing things with computers since I was 12, 13, like full time, like every day. So I would say that's what I like and what I do, like fix technical issues with computers, usually with servers, network, those things. And that is then built into what is today Internet Vikings, like solving technical issues.
Yeah, fantastic. It's kind of like that mantra. If you do what you love, you don't have to work a day in your life, as they say. But
exactly, and that's both good and bad. I would say someone like my wife would probably say it's not that good that I like that I do so much, because then I can spend too many hours on it.
Yeah.
But it's like my co-founder Victor usually say, like, what would we do if we don't do Internet Vikings? We would basically just do the same thing and under the new name. It's much more fun to do it with Internet Vikings because it's fun.
Yeah. You found your niche, so to say.
Yes.
Elephant in the room here, Rickard. It's at the time of this recording, it's the US election day at the moment, and for some reason, I guess it's because of Corona and whatnot, but I felt like it was a lot more hype around the US election from Europe point of view 4 years ago. But I know our fellow Americans, this is an incredibly huge event this time around. And I had a podcast just the other week with Matthew Shaddick, the head of politics of GVC, and we talked about how they have created the odds around this election. And he mentioned that this is the biggest sports betting event of the entire year is the election, which just goes to show the interest of this. And he also said that actually most of the betting volume is going towards Trump, actually, although the odds are massively in favor to Biden. So as a starting point, like, what do you think, Rickard, about the election? Like, who do you see as the front runner in the election?
I've been following it quite good, and as we all know, like as of yesterday, it's quite close between the two candidates, and there's like if it would have been like a month ago, 2 months ago, they were like a clear winner.
Yeah.
Like Biden was leading with like 7%, but today it's a tie, and we need to. It was so interesting to see tomorrow what happens, but it will be a lot of counting and recounting, and with that comes other implications.
Yeah,
like when George W. Bush won. Was it 20 years ago, 19 years ago?
Yeah, in 2000 it took a long time. It took weeks, even a month, I think, before
it was nearly a month.
Yeah, before they actually managed to conclude that he was the winner, and it was like by a couple of hundred votes in Florida at that time.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what happened, because the implications of this election is huge. I mean, for us as Europeans, and even us being in the tech industry type of thing, and I have this feeling, that we have like relative stability in Europe, and if we compare to the polarization in the States, and some things that I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but in the EU on like a technical level, we see a lot of steps being taken forward consistently, with the GDPR, for example, being implemented a couple of years ago, and also on the payments side, there was the PSD2 recently, that are just constantly evolving and kind of keeping up with society in Europe, and the technological advancements that we are seeing. But we don't see the same thing in the US. It seems like they are lagging behind, and I wonder if this is due to the polarization that is just gridlocking the entire system in that regard. Do you see this as well?
I think it's because you have different stakeholders. Like if you look at the bank system, like 10 years ago, you had to pay a fee to transfer your money if you had two banks, and transfer it from your own account to one bank to another bank. You had to pay a fee for it, like a percentage fee or a flat fee. It's these kind of things that like the US have had for years, that it basically is to because the big companies can do that and get funds, like you get the revenue from it. And that's also why it opens up with like PayPal. Like why PayPal is not as big in Sweden compared to the US. It's because we don't have this kind of when you transfer money from one account to another, from one friend to another friend, there's no cost involved into that. You can do instant transfers in Sweden, and you have been able to do that for a very long time. And those things haven't been implemented in the US because you have a lot of banks having a lot of revenue from those kind of transactions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they are. You would think that kind of the banks are holding back this technology from being delivered to the consumers.
Sorry for interrupting you, but it's not only banks. I would say it's like in general. Like if you look at the broadband, how that works. Like in Sweden, you have the fibers in Stockholm. It's owned by the city, and everyone can get the fiber into a building. To set up a broadband connection. But if you look into the US, where you have like big landowners selling out the right to put a fiber into the ground to different broadband providers, and that is why I think why it's so diverse in terms of number, the amount of broadband providers in the US, because you have one provider like in Florida. Like that have like let's say 1 million customers, and that's pretty small. Then you have the big ones like Verizon and so on. Like these local ones can have more or less have a monopoly because they own like the entire fiber infrastructure, and there's no one else can challenge that. But I think that it will be the interesting thing with 5G, and I think that's why everyone is so scared about the 5G. If you look at the broadband providers, because it's just the last mile from the router, the connection hub, to the end user. That's where there's a monopoly. But if you look at 5G, you don't need that anymore. And I think that will be a dramatic, like a shift in how many people that would actually have like a fiber internet connection and only use 5G instead.
Yeah, that's an interesting point what you're saying, and there's another level to this too, which is Elon Musk's Starlink project, which is also on a similar note. He's trying to deliver really good internet speeds, especially to rural America, because this has always been the problem with the US, right? Like I'm sure you've been there many times too. It's like when you go to the States and you go out of the city, all of a sudden you don't have even 3G connection any longer. This is the problem, right? If you're not in the middle of a city, you probably don't have access to really high speed internet. This is like alien to hear for a European.
Yeah, no, but it was 10 years ago. If you were in the US, they were still using the Edge network, like 2.5G. And there was no like good internet connection, and you couldn't use it. And we in Europe had 3G for like 5-10 years.
Yeah.
So I think that technical shift took too long, going to 3G. Now there are 4G LTE, but I really hope that it will be pretty quick into 5G, and also other things like doing satellite internet to entire continents and so on.
Yeah, it feels like we are just behind the doors for like a bit of a paradigm shift when it comes internet-wise. And I know Elon Musk, they just announced like the other day that they are just taking like beta testers now for Starlink, which is basically this network of satellites that are orbiting Earth that will offer fairly cheap internet and with fairly high speeds to particularly then the rural parts of the world, really, which is pretty remarkable. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Are you into do you read up on that part a lot? Because I know it on a very rudimentary level. Do you have any thoughts on that topic? Like,
a little bit. I discussed it with some friends that I work with. Those kind of challenges to deliver internet in an efficient way worldwide.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. So, what would be your expectation with Starlink, then, for example? Is this something that you think will be as high? Like, will it deliver on the hype?
I think it will. Probably not in like cities and so on, but if you look at more like countryside, those kind of areas, for sure, it would be something that people would need to have, because if you look at 5G, you might not be able to have that the kind of speed you want that on the countryside, because then you would need to put antennas and stations everywhere.
Yeah.
Then it's probably easier to use satellite, even though you get some issues with needing to like transfer the data up to satellite and then transfer it back to the Earth.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this develops now in general. So this from one thing to the other, as we are on the topic of US in general, depending on who wins, like the Democrats or the Republicans. Now, do you think that either of the two parties will have any effect on kind of the progress we are seeing at the moment in the States when it comes to regulation and sportsbooks opening and new states opening up in the online environment?
I think yes, 100%. As you have had Sheldon Elderston from Vegas that owns the Sands, that have been pouring a lot of money into the Republican Party.
Yes.
Basically to fix so there will be no federal legalization regarding online gambling.
Yeah.
And I think like it's two-sided. That is one thing that they want to protect the Vegas industry, but on the other side you have the issues with Corona, that you maybe like Vegas, where it's down like 20% or something. Macau is down 95%, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
The issue these kind of like companies have is they haven't been online. Like the Sands haven't been online. If you compare it to other like say Svenska Spel in Sweden, where they both have the land-based, the Casino Cosmopol, and they have the online opportunities as well. They have it's diversified income stream, and the big companies in UN haven't done that like properly, in my opinion. And obviously now with Caesars buying William Hill, maybe that will change. Like because, and I think I guess this is 100% a pure guess. I think if Corona wouldn't have happened, then Caesars wouldn't have bought William Hill. Because why would they? They had a like sustainable business, getting people to Vegas, and then have them play in Las Vegas. But they can't do that today because of the COVID situation, and then they need to like, go online. Maybe a decade too late, but they needed to do something, and now they get an operation, especially in the UK, and see how can they mimic that in the US.
Yeah, talk about polarizing figure and talking about the US being behind at the same time, because Sheldon Adelson, like you said, the owner of the Sands in the States, I think he owns the Venetian and he owns the Palazzo, which is my favorite hotel when I go to Vegas, actually. And the employees there, they always talk. I mean, he's like a god within those environments. He's one of the richest people in the world, Sheldon Adelson, and he's both loved and hated at the same time. So I think he's very, very well respected amongst his staff. But like you rightly mentioned, he is like the most hated person in the poker industry, for example, because he was one of the driving forces behind the Black Friday, actually in the 2000s, that basically put a stop to online gambling in the US at that time. And
just to comment on that one, it's if like on a business level, he have done the right decision. Like if you have a business of having like land-based casinos that you need to get people into that casino, then having an online casino or online poker or online sports betting, it's a threat to your business. And it's basically just removing potential issues and that's what they've been doing for the last 10 years. But what I think if you look forward for the next 10 years, is that I don't think we can see that kind of like they can't hold it back as they have been doing for the last 10 years, because on the state level you have like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, like all of them are opening up, and just like Pennsylvania and New Jersey, it's huge markets, but there's so many implications that you can't transfer data, money, anything between states, like on a fed, because then it becomes federal. So you need data centers in every state. You need if you have a casino, like online casino,
it's ring fence.
Players from like New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
You
actually need one server set up in New Jersey and one in Pennsylvania.
It's ring fence, right? You cannot share.
Because and the reason is you can't transfer data over borders, like over state borders. So it's kind of ridiculous. But that's how the US system how it works with state and federal.
Exactly. That's exactly. It is like a little mini countries within the country, but then they have the federal level where when they do business between states, exactly, then it becomes federal. Do you know if they are able to do deals between states, so that if they would ring fence two states, for example, but I think that they wouldn't be able to do that. No, I don't think they would.
Because then it will be federal.
Exactly.
And then it's under federal legislation.
Exactly. And that's why we see, for example, Evolution are setting up studios in each state, because they aren't able to live stream from a different state, like the actual.
I would actually guess so. I don't know, but it's on theory that it's probably the case.
Yeah, exactly. Is the US something that you guys are looking into as well, Rickard, with data centers and stuff?
100%. Like I had a discussion with our CEO Peter this morning about it, and there is a lot of possibilities.
Yes,
but as we don't want to go in too early or too late, because for example, when we set up data centers in every state, and these data centers also need to be in a casino, like within the limit of a casino. So you need to have it in the basement of a casino.
Okay.
But also there's even more implications on top of it.
Yeah.
But we want to do it, and to helping, basically what we're doing with helping European operators with our Asian data center to be able to cater to the Asian audience or Latin America. We exactly want to do the same thing here to be able to cater to the US market.
Yeah, you would think that you guys have a pretty big advantage in that regard, because obviously gaming is a primary market of yours. So to be able to set up data centers specialized in gaming would be something that you would have a pretty. You wouldn't have that many competitors in the US that have done that before, you would think. Right?
No, it's a few. Usually there's like 1 or 2 per state. There's not that many that does like all over. But that's something that we are like want to explore, because if you look into it, our big competitors like Amazon Web Services, they will never set up a data center in every like basement of every casino in the US. Because
why not?
It's just too much hassle. They have like these mega data centers that's like tens of thousands of square meters. They would never set up like 1,000 square meter at a casino just to cater to that industry, because it's not like they're doing 40 billion euros in revenue for the Amazon Web Services. So the online gambling industry for them is just it's so small in compared to what they do.
Yeah, they wouldn't go outside of their business model to kind of aggregate these massive data centers and then just create some little small tiny one at the corner just because like they would stick with their with what they do as its core, obviously.
Exactly. And for example, if they would have that and then they accidentally transfer data over state borders because of like, I don't know, fault tolerance or anything, then it will be. Then they will breach the federal law, and then Amazon will never take that risk.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably something they want to stay out of. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Just speaking about Sheldon Adelson, by the way, and just this shift that we are seeing from these traditional land-based casinos in the States, being very opposed to online gambling. I think just to solidify the point that you were making before, that that's kind of the floodgates are open in a sense now in the US. I think both on a state level, like you see states like Pennsylvania, Nevada, obviously, and so forth, they are obviously increasing the tax revenues, so the state is happy, especially at this time when they need every single tax dollar that they can. But also it seems that the land-based casinos are now opening up, becoming more open-minded to these ideas to open a online operation as well, because all of a sudden, their operations are at risk. And you mentioned just before that you think that this is the reason why Caesars, for example, acquired Will Hill. Is for that reason.
100%. Just go into Vegas casino today and there is no one there, and I would say that's a business risk.
Yeah,
if you don't have anyone coming to your physical location.
Yeah.
So give it 5 years.
Yeah, and we'll see.
Then there will be a lot of these giants in the US that will have moved over and probably bought other operators in Europe. Like people, like operators in Europe that are good at both handling regulations, but also doing a good online operation. So I think we will see more acquisitions from the US side, buying, in their sense, small European operators, but in our sense, it's pretty big ones they're buying.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 3 billion pounds or euros for
2.9. Yeah. That's it. And what they want is just the US operation. They don't care about the Europe operation, Caesars. which is interesting.
It's amazing, and it's a big shift because it's so much more funds pouring into the iGaming industry today than it was 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It's massive. I mean, just to solidify that, I mean, look at DraftKings value on the stock exchange in the US. It's crazy. They had a revenue of like $150 million or something like that the last quarter, and the stock market values them to like 19 billion in the US. That is how much the market believes that the US the online casino market will blossom now. So you seem to be on the right point there. So like talking about like mergers and acquisitions, now that we saw Will Hill obviously being acquired by Caesars, do you think we'll see more mergers and acquisitions similar to this? And can we even speculate in? Do you think there are any operators that are like prime for the ripening? Like, what would you guess? Who will be the next company that will be bought?
No, but I think there is the pretty big European ones because they need to be some size. They need to be like, I don't know, around €1 billion in revenue, because otherwise it's too small for this company to buy it. Even though €1 billion is quite a lot of money, it's too small for them. But then, and they are buying it, and then they will put it in under their umbrella and have them to scale their online operation.
Because the interesting thing is like when Caesar buys Will Hill, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem that they are so interested in the revenue that they are generating in Europe, for example. They are more interested to kind of build their product in the US with the expertise that Will Hill has in-house, and the proprietary technology that they have, and so forth. And the interesting thing is that these massive brands that we know really well in Europe, that everyone knows, if you mention William Hill, especially in the UK, for example, I mean, every man and his dog would know William Hill. But in the US, they have no brand equity. And we saw that with GVC. They go in with MGM. They don't use the GVC brands like Ladbrokes and so forth. They obviously use the MGM brand because that has brand equity in the US. So do you think like even if there would be a brand that is not that expensive, let's say like Betsson, take Betsson as an example, Betsson Group, they obviously have zero brand equity in the US, but they have a lot of expertise in-house, and they have proprietary software and all these things. Do you think a company like that would, even though they are not the biggest operator, but to me, I was thinking about it the other day, maybe it would be like a company like Betsson Group that would be bought by Sheldon, for example, or someone if he changes his mind.
100%. Why wouldn't? Like, if you look on a financial level, like if you run a physical casino that did like tens of billions of dollars in revenue last year, and you're doing nothing today, and no profit, why wouldn't you want to like buy some online operations? Not because you will see any good thing coming out of it today, maybe because these companies plan 5-10 years ahead, and you need to do those kind of acquisitions that you will have some sort of leverage, or like getting something out of it in 5-10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And because if there's something that the US is lacking now to kind of mature as on the iGaming front, it is the expertise, right? Like to actually set up these operations and run these operations. So you would think that kind of taking the shortcut to buy up operators that have a lot of expertise in-house just for that reason would be something that would be really interesting to these major land-based players.
Yeah, but just look at all the Scandinavians in Malta that, in many's opinion, just have built this industry. Like, it's so interesting that a couple of thousand people in an island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea have like built this business or industry in Europe for the last 20 years. It's and it's not that many people, but if you take that operation and put it in like US, for example, where you can really scale it, because you have so many more people there. That would be interesting, like, for example, sports betting.
Yeah, true. True. I heard a rumor actually some time ago about this. There's so much rumor in the iGaming industry in general, right? But like one of the rumors were actually that Hard Rock was about to buy one of the major operators in Europe. The rumor was that they were about to buy Gig actually at some point.
Who was that?
The rumor was that they were about to buy Gig actually at some point.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it didn't fall through. It fell through in the end. Didn't happen. But and now they parted ways even. So
Yeah, I saw that.
Gig and Hard Rock. So if we would do another podcast in 1 year's time now, Rickard, shall we make a €10 bet and say that I'll bet that Betsson Group is acquired by a US land-based operator? Oh, let's say like this: Betsson, Kindred, I would say, as well as, or Leo Vegas. Let's say those three. Either of those three would be acquired by a US land-based operation within 1 year. What would you say? Yes or no? Then?
Not within 1 year, but within 3 years.
Within 3 years.
Yeah, because we will probably see this shift.
Yeah.
But I like 1 year. It's so quick in these regards. Like you said, with the election, what will happen? For example, maybe if there is a democratic win, will it be will people try to speed up a federal legislation regarding online gambling?
Yeah,
maybe it will happen, and that's things that. So I would say within the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, true. I mean, we also have the factor that if the Democrats win, I mean, they are quite pro, the health and safety for their citizens in terms of Corona. So obviously, Trump wants to keep everything open, right? And the Democrats are much more cautious. And we are heading into a kind of we can feel it, a dark winter now. Cases are going up, lockdowns are coming again, and in the US, if the Democrats takes over, you would imagine that there's a much higher probability that the casinos will close again. And if that were to happen, you would think that the casinos, the land-based casinos, would be even more enticed than to do these mergers and acquisitions, even in the short term. That would be my thought, at least.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. They need to do something.
Yeah, how long can they stay closed for? I mean.
And you don't have that long shortlist. If your land-based thing doesn't work, usually to go online is a good start.
Yeah.
And if I would be on the board for these kind of companies, that would be like on top of my shortlist what to do next.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just to close off the topic. So in our generation, like that is definitely a logical step and logical approach. And then you have these kind of like dinosaurs like Sheldon Anderson, 87 years of age, and he just hates online gambling. It's just not black. It's just black and white for him, And the question is just how many of these kind of dinosaur mindsets do you have in these traditional Las Vegas casinos that you need to convince before you take that step? But it's heading in the right direction. I mean,
but I don't think he hates it. It's just he's protecting his business.
Yeah,
it's just a business decision. Like I don't think it's that many feelings in it. It's just a business decision. Like if you have something that's making money, you want to protect it.
Yeah.
And the best way to protect it against online is to make sure there's no online.
Yeah, exactly. But then you have
feelings. In my opinion, it's more like it's just black and white.
Yeah, but then also you have very very like successful business people who are also just scared of change, because they don't understand it themselves. You know what I mean? Like Sheldon Anderson.
But that's because they're scared of a risk.
Yeah.
Because a change is a risk, and a business risk is something you don't want to do unless it's necessary. Or like you have a very good example is you had a business that was selling round plastic things this big 15 years ago, and now everyone listens at Spotify. It's they don't use CDs anymore, and that shift happened over 10 years. And these companies, like the big labels, were really fighting against it. But then also a Swedish initiative, Pirate Bay, came along and basically forced the the big labels to do something about it. And that became Spotify.
Yeah.
And now when you have the big land-based operations got forced to do something because of Corona and COVID, then there might be online gambling in the US.
Yeah.
So it's just these kind of shifts that happened with the music industry, and now also with
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you see disruption in the industry. It's a good example with Spotify, you know, because I mean the Pirate Bay was around for a long time. I mean, and they were trying to fight it with fire, you know, a long time in Sweden. And like with every time you try to fight the inevitable, it just backfires, you know. And then you know, the Pirate Party in Sweden was born out of all this mess, and they got something like 25% of the vote to the European election in Sweden at one point. Like, that's how infected this question was in Sweden. Then Spotify popped up, and like the Pirate Party disappeared because all of a sudden they offered a product that was better than free. That was their tagline, right? When they started, Spotify needed to come up with an idea that was better than free, better than Pirate Bay. Yeah, and that's what happened.
But it's the same thing with Netflix and all the video streaming opportunities out there, or companies. It's just what will happen.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on with Narika, it's crazy how time flies already. And there's so many more topics to cover today, but we'll do our best to go through a few more at least today. I would like to move in a little bit more to your field again, which is just the data centers that you have around the world. And you know, I understand this from a rudimentary level, but obviously you collect a lot of you see a lot of data passing through your service, of course, and through the years you must get a lot of different stats, and being able to kind of analyze where the trends are heading within the industry in terms of the traffic that you see and the geographical distribution of that. So I'm just curious to ask you on a high level, like, what are the trends that you see in the gaming industry in the last couple of years in terms of the data that's being passed through your service, and what do you think the trends are heading towards the future?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's so much out of the data that's transferred through the servers. It's more about like the kind of discussions we have with all our clients, and kind of we try to understand what's happening with the industry, because if we don't understand that, we can't stay ahead. But like in general, it's I would say it's all about diversity. Like 5 years ago, not everyone, but a lot of operators were focusing on the UK and Scandinavia, especially the Maltese operators. We've been working with some like bigger operators that have been doing like 30, 50 different countries for the last 10 years with us, and working closely with them. And they have always done diversity, and these Malta-based operators have done UK and Scandinavia until 2 or 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, when you started to see issues with you were too aggressive in terms of marketing, and you had like fines from UKGC, and you have the legislation in Sweden with that basically done. Like these kind of things did, in my opinion, good for the industry in general, because there was too much of a Wild West, 2014, 15, and it was just too easy to make a lot of money. If you look at it today, like the industry have really matured to know and to calculate business risks. The same thing as the US land-based. You can't only be relying on UK and Sweden, because if you were relying on UK and Sweden 3 years ago, you probably don't have like a profitable business anymore, or like a super profitable business at least. So what we are seeing is basically diversity, and operators are. If you look at the operators, they are just looking to diversify, either to the US, to Latin America, to Asia. Also within Europe, you don't need to go that far. Like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, there were some operators starting up in Germany, and no one did casino in Germany for some strange reason. Everyone was focusing UK, Scandinavia again. But these guys did Germany, and they did build a really good company out of it. Also, no one's focused on Denmark 4 years ago because they didn't have time to read through and do the licensing and so on. Everyone focused on Sweden. So these things that everyone needs to actually diversify their business and not having the income stream from one country because of the risks, the political risk within iGaming. You have marketing bans in Spain. You have the 5,000 Swedish krona deposit or per week payment limit, play limit. These kind of things. It's an issue for the industry, but it also helps the industry to be better if you look at 5-10 years from now. But in the short term, everyone needs to diversify. New markets, new ways of doing business, and I think that is what will happen.
This age where you see certain operators just focusing on a very small amount of markets, that age is completely over. I would imagine it would be a huge risk for any operator now to just focus on one or two markets, whatever they are, because we have seen now how quickly things can change. So diversification is the key if you are an operator. But then the question is then how could you ever start an operator now in this environment unless you have massive resources?
There is massive resources still to be put into this industry, and you don't need today, in my opinion, you don't need that much resources to set up, because you have our good friends from Pragmatic Solutions to help to set up the platform, and there is a lot of companies like that today that weren't available like 10 years ago.
But you would need, still in marketing.
Then you need marketing and everything.
Yeah.
But I spoke, there is a lot of operators focusing on, I don't know, New Jersey, for example, that's going to set up next year. And also now, if you look in the German market, there will be a shift. These legislations, it also opens up that some companies will decrease their revenue in that country, but that will also increase revenue for other other companies. If you look at the Swedish market, for example, you see that not all operators are going downwards in terms of revenue. If you look at the tax returns, there's actually a few companies that's increasing quite a lot and becoming bigger and bigger year over year.
Are you talking net revenue now, or just pure revenue?
NGR.
Okay. And what do you attribute that to? What is the key to succeed in Sweden that some are and some are not?
Just doing things better. It's not that easy. It is not that hard to run a company. It's just you need to do it better than your competitors. And you had some competitors that did the mobile a lot earlier than other competitors that did. You had Evolution building a great live casino ahead of everyone else, and so you have Trustly build a great payment solution before. It's not the business idea is probably not the hard part. It's the execution around it, how you build it and how you time it and so on.
So Sweden particularly, and I think as a large part today, this is an interesting subject to Sweden particularly. When the regulation launched, in 2019, beginning of 2019, the major operators were all standing behind it. They were excited for Sweden to be regulated, and now the story is very different. There's the minister Ardalan Shekarabi.
Can I just comment on that one? Sorry for interrupting you. Of course, you can never say that they are not. They can never say that they are against legislation. They must say that they are with it.
They must say that they are with it. But even within the tone within the industry, I think was that the major operators saw this as an opportunity to kind of shut out the smaller operators. Even not publicly, but this is what the talks were a lot behind the doors. No. Would you agree with that? Yeah.
No, but I agree.
Yeah.
People like it. Yeah.
But the tone now within the industry is very different. I would say.
Yeah, 100%. It's because it got over-regulated.
Yeah, of course. And so that comes to my point, which is Ardalan Shekarabi, the minister, obviously has kind of had his little crusade against the iGaming industry. Let's say that is very much the feeling within the iGaming industry, and he isn't maybe the most popular minister amongst the iGaming industry. Let's say that. But I know that you have a bit of a personal relationship to Ardalan, which actually I think very few in this industry have actually spoken to Ardalan Shekarabi in person. And I know that you have actually met him. So can you? What is your analysis of Ardalan Shekarabi? What is his intention with his regulation? And can you tell more about how you met him and so forth?
Yeah, we we had lunch just a few months ago in August.
Yeah.
And basically, my intention was to discuss how we see on the iGaming side what he's doing, and in terms of legislation, what's the roadmap going forward, and what does he think about the current things that have been set up already. So if you look at his agenda, I think it is to build a pretty good setup within iGaming and have a good rule book for it. The problem is that it takes time to do it, and that's what we discuss a lot. They started to do this 5 years ago to build a legislation, getting different voices from the industry and so on. And then 2018 there were legislation and they started to work with it. But in the how we discussed was more about, it's not perfect. Everyone agrees on the current legislation. It's not perfect. It's a work in progress. It's every politician or everyone that in the government, you need to see this on a 5-10 year plan. You can't say, okay, what will happen within the next half year, because it doesn't make sense to do this kind of short-term changes. Even though I will come back to that, the 5K bet, the limit. But so I think what a lot of the discussion was about how can we make it better going forward, because everyone agreed there is some flaws in it, and you need to protect the citizens of a country, but you also need to have a good business environment for the companies, and it's not easy sometimes to find a good middle way between that. And we discussed a lot regarding the B2B licensed, and there is research going on about it currently, and that will be presented in a month in mid-December, if I remember correctly. And I think there will be a B2B license in Sweden.
Wow, that's
on game providers and payment providers, more or less as it is in the UK. Because if you look into what's the issues with these unlicensed and the canalization is that, in my opinion, there is a lot of people are able to play their favorite slots from some game providers because there's no B2B license. You can still do that as a game provider. And if you want to have a good licensing system, you need to enforce that to not only the operator, because they need to push too much burden on our operator. You need to push it also to payment provider and game suppliers. And maybe also hosting providers, but I don't think like they're doing in the US. But I don't think that will happen in Sweden, because if you do it with payment and game providers, I think the problem with cannibalization will be solved.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder I wonder how like the share price will be affected of like Evolution, NetEnt, and these companies that are listed in Sweden that have massive amount of revenue in Sweden if the government would announce a B2B regulation.
I think maybe short term it might be not so good for some of them, but look at it on a 3-year or 5-year plan, then it wouldn't matter that much.
Yeah, probably not. So.
That's just my opinion.
So you think so the voices within the industry is very much like Ardalan Shekarabi has bad intentions for the iGaming industry, but you are saying that no, it's not that Ardalan Shekarabi wants to shut down the iGaming industry in Sweden. It is that he's working towards a long-term plan. It's not perfect now, but you see it improving in the coming years, the regulation, even for the operators.
That's my how I
you felt
how I felt it. How I think
That's
that they are doing it, because like we discussed a lot regarding these kind of big companies, like everywhere from Evolution being like one of the largest companies at the Swedish stock market, and that those kind of companies, it's bringing in a lot of, first of all, profit for the pension funds that have invested into it, and secondly, into the overall economy of Sweden.
Yes.
It's not like these secondary things, like the journey of Evolution. It's also good for Sweden as a country. Like they are the second best, like the second biggest startup out of Sweden, in my opinion. If you have Spotify, it's the biggest one in terms of market value. Then you have Evolution, then you have like Klarna and so on. That's like around 10 billion. But
it's true.
Evolution, it's an amazing company.
Yeah, Evolution. They have a market cap of like close to like 20 billion or something like that.
I think it's like 13 last time I checked.
30 even? Yeah.
13.
13. Yeah, 1-3. Yeah, it's insane trajectory that share has had through the years. This exponential growth for years and years, which is totally unexpected considering the rumors were that NetEnt were actually got offered to buy Evolution at one point, like 10 years ago. And the NetEnt guy said, who are these guys coming this cocky? We're not going to buy this. And then things turned out as they did in the end. So your expectation would be that looking in the crystal ball for Sweden, we are actually looking at a brighter future. So last question on this as well. Then, do you think a lot of operators I know are actually budgeting for a potential potential prolonging of these temporary deposit limits in the case that the government, their secret plan, so to say, is to actually impose this as a permanent restrictions. But what would your expectation be? Do you think they will prolong them? Do you think that these are temporary restrictions?
Actually, I don't know, because it's so hard to say if they will increase it, like double it or something, or if they will prolong it for like 6 months. It's not. It's not that easy, because you can argue on both cases that you should do it or shouldn't do it. But if you look at some operators, it haven't been all that bad. Like this kind of the limit.
No.
Like I saw some budgets where it wasn't like the Q3 figures wasn't as bad as they had budgeted for.
Yeah, fair enough. Great, thank you so much, Rickard, for today. This has been an awesome session. Actually, I really appreciate it. I want to say just as a last question, as a closing statement today, Rickard, where do you see Internet Vikings in 5 years?
Basically, doing what we do today, helping operators with like brand protection, protecting their brand both online on Google and on the domain management side, and also the hosting, helping operators to just being better and able to scale their business, because that's what we want to be. We want to be like the platform where either other platform providers or operators directly can scale their business, and into new countries, or if they need to scale in one market. That's what we want to do. And are we not being like a big company? Maybe not Evolution big, but a little bit smaller than them.
A little bit smaller. You aim for, like, let's say the single-digit billion, like 9 billion market cap, something like that.
I think in terms of like market, if you're talking Amazon doing 40 billion on hosting services, there is a lot of progress happening within the hosting industry if you're looking at only on that one, and we really want to take a big part of that that industry and those opportunities. And that's not only within iGaming. iGaming is just one part of what we do.
Exactly.
It's like on pure accident why we're on iGaming. It's because Victor, my colleague, used to live in Malta for 12 years. It's not that we had a plan for it, and then we just became good at it. And that's why we're in iGaming. But we also want to do like e-commerce and other activities.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, if it's anyone can do it, Rickard, it's you. I have full faith, and I hope next time we do this podcast, we're getting closer to the market cap of Evolution. Then let's follow up then, and we have some other bets to follow up on then. Now then, let's see if there will be an acquisition of Betsson, LeoVegas, or Kindred or something like that, and we'll have to follow up on this and see if we are as clever as we think predicting the future, or if it's like Jesper Kärrbrink, our dear friend, who usually says the only people who can predict the future are the stock analysts, or who think that they can predict the future. All right,
me and him, we have a lot of discussions what will happen going forward.
Yeah, that's for sure. Take care of yourself, guys. It's been great today.
Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.